The bell and the wood thrush call us together in covenant, to awaken us from forgetfulness, that we may learn how to live in harmony and community. Today, let us especially remember our covenant to affirm and promote the sixth principle, the goal of world community, with peace, liberty, and justice for all.
Please sing along with the First Unitarian Church of Oakland's Chancel Choir for our hymn number 396, I Know This Rose Will Open.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Meredith Garmon, minister to Community Unitarian Universalist Congregation at White Plains, New York, where I am coming to you live this morning from our sanctuary.
Good morning. I'm Adam Kent, the congregation's music director, coming to you live from my home in Manhattan.
Good morning, and I'm Emily Economo, a member of the worship committee, serving as worship associate today, coming to you from New Rochelle, New York.
Tracy Brenneman, our director of religious education, is supporting online religious education classes for our children and youth in another Zoom room right now.
It's a blessing you were born. It matters what you do. Your experience of the divine is true, and you don't have to go it alone.
The mission of this congregation is to nurture each other in our spiritual journeys, foster compassion and understanding within and beyond our community, and engage in service to transform ourselves and our world.
It's time for our weekly Almanac. We are smack in the middle of winter. Today is the 6th Sunday of winter, 7 more to go. 6.8 inches of snow blanketed White Plains yesterday. The wolf moon is waning crescent, and a new moon will begin on Tuesday morning, February 1st. This new moon begins the Lunar New Year, also known as Chinese New Year. Happy Year of the Tiger. I extend to you the traditional New Year's wish for your great happiness and prosperity. In Mandarin, that's Gongxi Fasai, or something like that. This last week has been cold, about as cold overall as the week before, but the days in White Plains are getting longer now at the rate of more than 2 minutes of additional daylight each day, so warmer times are coming. The White Plains sunrise on Thursday morning was 7:08, and I mention that in particular because 7:08 is the time the sunrise will spring forward to when we go to daylight savings time in 6 more weeks. Daylight savings time will make the mornings dark again, but not as dark as they were before Thursday.
A special welcome to our visitors. We are honored to have you with us. If you're new here today, please do take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat.
You will find a link to the order of service on our website at cuucwp.org. Our website also offers information to help keep us connected, as well as a donate button.
If you have a joy, sorrow, or milestone you'd like to share, please enter it into the chat. Please make the first word be either joy, sorrow, or milestone, so that at the end of the prayer, I'll know which chat entries are meant for me to speak.
We now invite you to light a chalice or candle at home along with Christian Force as he leads us in our chalice lighting.
Hi, I'm Christian Force, a member of your Board of Trustees at CUUC. I came to CUUC when I was looking for a place that could acknowledge that there are many different religions and practices around the world, and that all of them can be true to individuals all at the same time. Also, I love winter. I'm very happy that we're getting this storm today. On the sixth Sunday of the season, we dedicate our chalice to the sixth principle of our faith, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Please join with me in the chalice lighting words from Dag Hammarskjöld. Each morning, we must hold out the chalice of our being, to receive, to carry, and to give back. Now, here's our choir with Erlene Rentz's Gaudiamus Hodie, which means rejoice together today, rejoice, hallelujah. The choir anthem is followed by today's UU Minute, Parish versus Church in Massachusetts.
Hi, my name is Joe Major. My spouse Ann and I have been members of CUUC for over 30 years, and I am presently serving as board chair. We've seen the congregation go through a variety of transformations over the years. New ministers have passed the baton from one to another, leading us on different trails to a common spiritual destination. The same is true of our dedicated religious education leaders too, as they help shape the path for our children and youth. They have all been transformative, resulting in today's congregation that's much more comfortable in taking charge of its destiny and charting its own journey. One of the important chapters in this transformation has been the shift in how our Board of Trustees gets its work done. With a significant change in demographics, namely smaller families, and other changes in traditional religions, our congregation finds itself in the same pattern as other traditional denominations, a declining rate of growth. In response, our board has increasingly relied upon ad hoc work teams to carry out many of its responsibilities. Today, committees of the board are used much less frequently than in the past. In order to complete the transition, we are asking the congregation to agree with the board's recommendation to make a reduction in board size. Each year is increasingly more difficult when it comes to selecting qualified candidates to serve the 3-year board term. Many other congregations our size have already made this adjustment, and the trend towards smaller boards remains in place. It's time for us to make this common sense adjustment too. It will also help us fill all of the additional roles necessitated by the ministerial transition which is underway. In order to fill the search committee and the self-assessment committee, we need to have all hands on deck. A reduced demand for board members will be helpful here. Our goal is to reduce the overall size of the voting members of the board from 11 to 7 members. The model delivers this result immediately. There is no lengthy drawn-out process. We have already conducted a congregational forum on Sunday, December 12th. Please join us for the second and final forum on Sunday, February 6th, right after the Sunday worship service. It will be a virtual event via Zoom. We would like to hear everyone's voice, and this is your chance to add yours. Thank you.
Gaudeamus Hodie, Gaudeamus Hodie, Gaudeamus Hodie. Gaudeamus Hodie, Gaudeamus Hodie, Gaudeamus Hodie. Hallelujah, Gaudeamus Hodie, Hallelujah, Gaudeamus Hodie.
First Amendment, ratified with the Bill of Rights in 1791, provides that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Originally, this applied only to the National Congress. States were not so constrained. In Virginia, the Statute of Religious Freedom, written by Thomas Jefferson and enacted in 1786, provides that no taxation can support a church. In Massachusetts, the state constitution, written by John Adams and adopted in 1780, provided that every town tax their citizens for the institution of the public worship of God and for the support and maintenance of public Protestant teachers of piety, religion, and morality. Massachusetts' system of standing order churches drew a distinction between the church and the parish. The church consisted only of those who had been admitted to church membership, which generally entailed having a verified experience of religious conversion in the church. The parish, on the other hand, consisted of the residents of a town who had not joined another religious group, such as the Episcopal Church. All members of a parish, whether or not they were also members of the town's standing order church, were taxed to fund the worship of God and the maintenance of public Protestant teachers. When a new minister was to be selected, the church voted, for this was their spiritual leader. The parish also voted, for this was their publicly funded Protestant teacher of piety, religion, and morality. Usually, the church would vote to call a minister, and the parish would, pro forma, sanction the church vote. But the emergence and spread of liberal Congregationalists, increasingly accepting the label Unitarian, produced splits between church and parish. Sometimes the church was liberal and the parish conservative. More often, the parish was liberal and the church conservative. Our spoken invocation comes from Zach Norris's book, Defund Fear: Safety Without Policing, Prisons, and Punishment. Whether we are looking at violence, chaotic weather and natural disasters, or economics, safety doesn't come from standing alone. If safety is anything, it is relationship and connection. It is because we have built our institutions as if safety comes from separation that we now find ourselves hanging by a thread. Now, we the people need to roll up our sleeves and hold our institutions accountable to all of us. Real safety happens when we bridge the divides and build relationships with each other, overcoming suspicion and distrust. Real safety comes from strategic, smart investments, meaning resources directed toward our stability and well-being. Real safety addresses the harms that the current system is failing to tackle and holds people accountable for those harms while still holding them in community. Real safety results from reinstating full humanity and agency for everyone who has been dehumanized and traumatized, so they can participate fully in society. If we are able to transform our old system and create a culture of caring and healing in its place, we may have an actual shot at creating real democracy for the first time. And for the sung invocation, please join with All Souls Church Unitarian in Washington, D.C., Spirit of Life, in Spanish, then English. Pray with me. Spirit of life and love, in which we live and move and have our being. Thursday, January 27, was Holocaust Remembrance Day. May we remember and recommit to an ending of all that disregards worth and dignity. We hold in our hearts this morning the Eastern Mediterranean region, where snow disrupted life for internally displaced people in camps in Syria. Those caught in the stampede at the Africa Cup of Nations match in Yaoundé, Cameroon, and those who mourn the 8 who died. Those who are still crossing or trying to cross the border between Myanmar and Thailand. We celebrate this week the arrival of the James Webb Space Telescope at the L2 stationary orbit location, where it will stay and in a few months begin revealing astronomical realities we have never known before. We celebrate with women in Guatemala who celebrate their judicial victory in sexual violence cases over half a century. May peace and equality cover the globe. We hold in our hearts all those taken by the COVID pandemic, which has killed 5.68 million people so far. And there are 73 million people currently infected. Our prayers are with all those affected and with the healthcare workers caring for them and striving to keep us all safe. And so we ask of ourselves the mindful intention to delight in what is good, to confront what is cruel, to heal what is broken. We'll observe now 60 seconds of silence.
Calling on you, hungry hearts, everywhere through endless time. You who wander, you who thirst, I offer you this heart of mine. Calling on you, hungry spirits, all the lost and the left behind. All I can, I'll share with you, your joy and your sorrow, and
From Norman Fisher's Training in Compassion. Training number 9 is Turn All Mishaps into the Path. The spiritual path, the path toward wholeness, deepening wisdom, and expansive equanimity, peace, and joy. That is, the path of life insofar as we tread it with the intention of becoming more fully alive, is not all sunshine and sweetness. Mishaps mishappen. If we treat them as part of the path, then they are. When something difficult or terrible happens to us, a loss, a setback, a frustration, an insult, naturally we immediately feel dismay, anger, disappointment, or resentment, just as everyone does, and just as we always have. But now we have a slogan to train with until in the midst of bad circumstances it pops into mind, turn all of this into the path. We can turn toward our afflictive emotions, understanding that they are natural under the circumstances. Dismay, annoyance, anger, anxiety, resentment arise sometimes for all of us. Instead of denying, repressing, or trying to ignore these emotions, we can allow them to be present with dignity. Repeat this slogan. Turn all mishaps into the path to yourself at various points during your day. Write it in your journal every day for a while, a week or a month, until it is thoroughly internalized. Then, when something bad happens, instead of saying, "Dang, why did this have to happen?" you can instead say, "Yes, of course, this is how it is. Let me turn toward it. Let me practice with it. Let me go beyond entanglement to gratitude."
Our hymn is number 140, Hail the Glorious Golden City. Please sing along.
Hail the glorious golden city, pictured by the seers of old. Everlasting light shines o'er it, wondrous things of it are told. Wise and righteous men and exalted, all are called to task divine, all must aid alike to carry forward one sublime design. And the work that we have built, oft with bleeding hands and tears, oft in error, oft in anguish, will not perish with our years. It will live and shine transfigured in the final reign of right. It will pass into the splendors of the city of the light.
I am here to love. What else? Maybe you understand that you are also here to love everything. To love self, recognizing that I am everything, everywhere, just as you are. This is not always fun. Having fun with others is one way for love to manifest, but sometimes love is lost sleep caring for the new baby, sitting up waiting for the teenager to get home. Sometimes love is laboring long hours to provide for a family and to provide others with education or healthcare or some product or service that will help their life go better. Sometimes it's giving up a day off to help a neighbor. Sometimes it's pretty easy, like donating blood. Sometimes it's hard, like donating a kidney. We don't always do it well or with much energy or much skill or much commitment. Still, it's what we're here for. What else? At its most basic, love is simply not turning away, not turning your back, not when your kid is in tears or in danger, or your partner is, or your friend is, or your neighbor is, not when anybody is. Love didn't turn away when on February 7, 1968, American bombs, rockets, and napalm obliterated much of the South Vietnamese town in Ben Tre, killing hundreds of civilians who lived there. That's the event about which a US officer was quoted saying, "It became necessary to destroy the town to save it." Ben Tre. Love may have been absent from too many hearts, but where there was love, it did not turn away. The Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh, who died last week at age 95, was active throughout that war trying to build peace. He wrote this about the destruction of Ben Tre. "I hold my face in my two hands. No, I am not crying. I hold my face in my two hands to keep the loneliness warm. Two hands protecting, two hands nourishing, two hands preventing my soul from leaving me in anger." Thich Nhat Hanh never turned away. Love turns toward, grieves the loss, reaches out to build healing, and we are here to love. What else? It helps when we have each other so that we can turn toward together. Unitarian Universalists have been using our Common Read program to turn together toward what is in need of healing, in need of attention, in need of care. For 2010, the Unitarian Universalist common read was Margaret Regan's The Death of Jocelyn, Stories from the Arizona-Mexico Borderlands. For 2010, the common read was Ibu Patel's Acts of Faith, which focused on interfaith action. For 2012, the common read was Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness. For 2013, my first year serving this congregation, I spoke from this pulpit about that year's common read, Saru Jayaraman's Behind the Kitchen Door, examining the inequities suffered by workers in the restaurant industry. For 2014, the common read was Paul Resor's Reclaiming Prophetic Witness, Liberal Religion in the Public Square, laying out the role of liberal religion in the public policy conversation. For 2015, the common read was Brian Stevenson's Just Mercy, a story of justice and redemption, which has since been made into a 2019 movie starring Michael B. Jordan. For 2016, the common read was William Barber's The Third Reconstruction, How a Moral Movement is Overcoming the Politics of Division and Fear. For 2017, the two common read books were Francis Moore Lappé and Adam Eichen's Daring Democracy, Igniting Power, Meaning, and Connection, and an anthology edited by Mitra Ranema, Centering, Navigating Race, Authenticity, and Power in Ministry. For 2018, the common read was an anthology edited by Manish Mishra Marzetti and Jennifer Nordstrom, Justice on Earth, People of Faith Working at the Intersections of Race, Class, and Environment. For 2019, the common read was Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz's An Indigenous Peoples History of the United States. For 2020, the common read was Imani Perry's Breathe, A Letter to My Sons. I wanted to name all of the previous years of common reads so far to remind us all, just by the titles, to convey something of what we Unitarian Universalists turn toward and have been turning toward over these last dozen years, and that we not forget. Where there is injustice, where there is pain, we turn toward, because love does not turn away. It is in that spirit that I come to the question, what do we need to do to keep each other safe? That's the question of this year's, the 2021-22 common read by Zach Norris. Its title is Defund Fear, Safety Without Policing Prisons and Punishment. The word defund has come to be particularly charged in today's discourse, and the folks at Beacon Press who published Norris's book thought they could reach more people by evoking that charge, so they changed the title to what it is now. The book was originally published in 2020 under the title, We Keep Us Safe, Building Secure, Just, and Inclusive Communities. It was then retitled a year later. Having now read the book, I have to say the original title does a better job of capturing what the book is about, as well as a better job of articulating what we need to be paying attention to, which is this question of what we need to do for all of us to be more safe. Norris makes but one reference to the militarization of policing in this country. There is one paragraph that suggests that outfitting police with armored personnel carriers, riot gear, tear gas, sonic and ultrasonic weapons, assault rifles, submachine guns, flashbang grenades, grenade launchers, sniper rifles, and SWAT teams might not be the best way to optimize our safety. But that is not a major point of the book, and there's nothing else said about police funding. My own thinking about defund the police slogan is that if it means we should be having conversations about which programs and initiatives actually work to improve our safety, then yes, we should be having those conversations. Too often, however, I'm afraid the slogan encourages neglect of one important point, namely, that under-policing is a form of oppression too. a point I learned from a Connor Friedersdorf article in Atlantic Monthly 6 months ago. Predominantly African-American communities are over-policed and under-policed at the same time. War on drugs over-policing and stop and frisk over-policing go on at the same time as homicide investigation under-policing, processing of rape kits under-policing, and insufficient community policing initiatives. In Chicago, according to a study of 19 months of murder investigations, when the victim was white, 47% of the cases were solved. For Hispanics, the rate was 33%. And when the victim was African American, it was less than 22%. As Jill Leovy writes, the system's failure to catch killers effectively made Black lives cheap. That's the oppression of under-policing that coexists with police brutality and harassment. One institution that I'd say clearly requires defunding, however, is prisons. Those places are vast, horrific machines for turning people with some mild antisocial proclivity into broken people who will inflict much more harm. Far from being instruments of public safety, prisons are devices of public endangerment. In 1972, the US incarceration rate was 161 per 100,000 in the population. And that was about the rate it had been for the previous 50 years. And then our incarceration began to go up. By 2007, the rate had more than quintupled from 161 per 100,000 to 767 per 100,000 in the population. Mass incarceration for nonviolent drug offenses has intentionally, disproportionately targeted and harmed people of color, as many Unitarians have known ever since Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow was our common read 9 years ago. And the public appetite for mass incarceration has at last begun to wane. By early 2021, the incarceration rate in the US had fallen a bit to 537 per 100,000 population. Still, more than 3 times greater than any year before 1973. And we are way ahead of the rest of the world in putting people behind bars. We have more prisons per capita than any other country in the world, and even after the recent decline, still more than 5 times the incarceration rate of Canada, Japan, Australia, or the average European country. And we are and feel less safe. As Norris writes, a general sense of unease grips the country. We feel legitimately unsafe because the threats are many, and most of us are already stretched to our limits, coping as best we can, perilously close to the edge. I would say that right now in America, we very much want to feel safe. I think I can legitimately claim that in America, safety has become a primary aspiration. We'll take an interlude now with Adam and some Eric Satie. Adam?
Thank you, Reverend Meredith. I wonder if the phrase mild antisocial proclivity could be applied to the French composer Eric Satie, who was one of music's great eccentrics. My favorite anecdote about him is his one-time diet of exclusively white foods like turnips, sugar, and meringue. His collaboration on a ballet with Jean Cocteau, Parade, created a riot at its premiere in Paris. But it was Satie's written response to a negative review in which he referred to the critic as a trou de cul that got him arrested. So in any case, here is one of his best known piano pieces, the Gymnopédie No. 1.
There is harm going on. And a lot of it is coming from what Norris calls the architects of anxiety, the fear mongers and the fear profiters, people who manipulate our anxieties so that we buy what they want us to buy and vote the way they want us to vote. Another much vaster group consists of the fear foot soldiers, all those who buy into the rhetoric of scarcity and blame and act upon it by furthering fear and hate. Finally, there are all of us who remain silent while the atmosphere of fear is stoked and maintained. Fear bystanders. We also bear responsibility. It's the old story of us versus them. I don't know if there's ever been a human civilization or even a human hunter-gatherer tribe who went even one generation without an identified enemy, them. But we are a species that can reinvent itself, can become what we've never been before. 400 years ago, we had no modern science. 250 years ago, there'd never been a nation state that was even more or less democratic. In 1820, the world literacy rate stood at 12%. That's right, 88 out of every 100 people on the globe could not read. By 1976, 2/3 of the world could read, and in 2019, literacy was up to 86% and still climbing. Every year, we have medical care abilities greater than we've ever had before. And we've never before been a species walking around with 15 billion interconnected mobile electronic devices as we are today. We are a species that can become, that has become, that regularly becomes what we've never been before. Some humans have recognized that there is no them, only us. It remains for that recognition to spread, to bridge the divides, build relationships, and transcend the old story of us versus them that we've never transcended before, but we can. It remains for us to continue growing the programs of restorative justice that have begun to develop. Restorative justice, as Zach Norris writes, is based on holding people accountable because they are held in community. Restorative justice is influenced by the principles of healing and peacemaking. In fact, a key component of restorative justice is to view violence prevention as a public health issue. Rather than asking what law was broken, who broke it, and how should they be punished, restorative justice asks who was harmed, what do they need, whose responsibility is it to meet those needs. Restorative justice asks, how can everyone in a given community, family members, friends, neighbors, coworkers, bystanders, community members, get actively involved in making amends, in ending violence, and righting relationships? School counselors and teachers, social workers, housing advocates, medical providers, faith leaders, and many others join forces to address why a harm was committed, how to repair the harm, and how to prevent other harm from being committed in the future. Restorative interventions involve dialogues and discussion circles with trained facilitation that support people who have done harm in recognizing the impacts of what they've done and acknowledging their accountability. Sometimes the survivor and the person who harmed them participate in separate circles as a safe way to offer for survivors to participate. Together, they reach agreements and make a plan for appropriate consequences and reparations, which may include stopping the harmful behaviors, listening to the person who was harmed, acknowledging the impacts of the harm, apologizing for the harm, making appropriate reparations, agreeing not to repeat the harmful behavior with anyone ever again. Sanctions and further consequences for failing to carry out their agreements and commitments are also part of the plan. Mandatory sentencing took away judge discretion, and that wasn't such a good idea. But much better than a little discretion from a judge is community discretion, and that part is not something we've never attained before. In fact, for 90% of human history, when we were hunter-gatherer tribes, the community got together to work out what to do about someone who committed a harm. Science does not come naturally to brains like ours, and it takes hard training. But restorative justice, that's in our DNA. Or to put the point more colloquially, this isn't rocket science, people. On the other hand, something else that is also in our DNA is an impulse to revenge. Michael McCullough writes, revenge's ability to punish aggressors, its ability to deter would-be aggressors, and its ability to discourage cheaters made it adaptive in our ancestral environment. The push of revenge comes naturally to us, and so does the pull of community belonging. Where community is available and functional for addressing problems, humans will use it. Where it isn't, we fall back on revenge. Of course, systems of restorative justice are not an instant cure-all for survivors. Healing can take time and may not happen immediately. But, writes Norris, the coming together of community to discuss root causes and responsibilities always succeeds in the sense that it inherently refuses dehumanization and curtails cycles of trauma. Restorative justice builds our capacity for holding each other accountable and holding ourselves accountable for the next time harm occurs, on whatever scale it does. Through the act of repairing harm done to people and relationships, we learn to develop community, manage conflict, build relationships, and increase social capital. We have a need for safety and security. Our current criminal legal system is lousy at providing that. Studies have found that people who go through restorative justice processes are much less likely to break the law again than those who have gone through the courts and prison, Norris reports. The restorative justice approach has been proven effective at reducing rates of repeated offenses. In a recent study of 100 felony cases, youth who went through restorative justice processes were 44% less likely to commit further crimes than those who went through the juvenile justice system. At the same time, survivors also reported a higher level of satisfaction. 91% in the same study said they would recommend the restorative process to a friend. Mary Koss, a professor of public health who's focused her research on sexual violence, comments, many victims say, I want to tell my story to him, to the person who did this to me. And I want my family and friends to be sitting there so they can understand I am a legitimate victim. While some survivors may want their cases to end up in court, others are dissuaded by the fact that judges and lawyers continue to blame victims and that conviction rates remain stubbornly low. They would rather hear the person who violated them acknowledge the harm than navigate a criminal system that seems stacked against them. More and more schools are utilizing restorative justice as an alternative to out-of-school suspensions. This typically features a meeting of the person involved, students, parents, teachers, administrators, and a counselor or psychologist. The goal is to get students who cause harm to take responsibility for their behaviors and acknowledge they caused suffering to others. It works because it's empowering. Rather than imposing a harsh set of punishments determined by the system, restorative justice enables students to create the consequences they deem appropriate and hold each other accountable. When you adopt restorative justice, you call students in and give them an opportunity to learn from their mistakes. When you suspend or expel, they are pushed out of school, and no such opportunity exists. There are also possibilities for restorative justice for corporations. Norris notes that true accountability is more likely to occur through restorative community-based justice in which corporate actors have to participate in community accountability sessions where they must come to terms with the harm they have caused and make amends. We are here to love. What else? And at its most basic, love is simply not turning away, not turning your back, not turning away from the need for all of us to be safe and the need for those who have broken covenant to be held accountable in a way that brings them back in rather than permanently shutting them out. Turning toward, not turning away, not turning your back. May it be so. Amen.
Our closing hymn is number 1030, Sia Hamba. Please sing along with the Virtual Choir Project, directed by Matthew Hunter and Kristen Bowser.
Sia Hamba.
Now please join the Christian force for our Chalice Extinguishing, words as you extinguish your chalice at home.
As we extinguish our chalices, please say with me the words on your screen. This beacon of peace, this torch of liberty, this fire of justice, we will take with us in our hearts that it may light the way to world community for every child of this earth.
And let us always remember the words of Rabbi Tarfon.
Do not be daunted by the world's grief.
Do justly now, love mercy now, walk humbly now.
You are not obligated to complete the work.
Neither are you free to abandon it. Go in peace.
If you